Pastor Doug here from Crossroads. It's great to be with you. I hope that today's message will draw you closer to Jesus.
Well, good morning, Crossroads. Great to be with you today. Thank you for joining in this series, Practicing the Way. Today we land the plane. We bring things to a close. So for 11 weeks, you have been journeying with us as we've been talking about what does it look like? What does it really look like to follow Jesus day in and day out? What does it look like to be his disciple, to be his apprentice, to be his followers? And just one last time as a background, how did we get here? Oh, why have we leaned in so heavily this year, and we'll continue to lean in the years to come? Well, back last year, 2024, as a church, we did a church-wide survey called Peak that helped us know where we were really strong, where we had room to growth. And that leadership team, that Peak team, one of our lowest areas was that idea of personal spiritual growth. In other words, we had a lot of room to grow in our personal spiritual growth. So we leaned in and we just didn't jump right in. We took the time, staff, board members, to start reading through resources. And there are so many great resources when it comes to following Jesus, when it comes to discipleship. And out of those many great resources, we picked one. Did we pick one because it is perfect? Did we pick one because it's the best? Did we pick one because I agree with everything an author said? No, that's not the reason. We picked one based on its multitude, its depth of resources. So many ways that would help you and I grow in following Jesus. And the resource that we landed on was Practicing the Way. That's the title of the book. And there are so many resources beyond the book. There is a small group study. It's 8 sessions. The staff just finished the small group study, finished reading through the book. So if you want to know any more about those pieces, you can talk to any staff member, see what their experience was like. And beyond those resources, they touched on things like the spiritual health reflection, the digital rule of life builder, but the depth and quantity of resources continues to grow. And there's so many more things that help you and I as we decide to follow Jesus, as we are his apprentice day in and day out. Let me just give you one example. When you go into the Practicing the Way website, you're going to see resources like this. And, we talked about that whole idea of spiritual practices, or the old word spiritual disciplines or spiritual habits, the things that you and I do to be with Jesus, to hear from Jesus, to grow in Jesus. And we gave you all those different ways that you could lean in, these spiritual practices that have been going on for the past 2,000 years, so many that Jesus displayed, modeled himself. And you say, well, you know what? I know that I want to grow in one. And maybe, let's just say yours is solitude. You've tried to spend some time in quiet, some time in solitude. You're a big extrovert. It's just not easy for you. It hasn't went really well. Your mind's wandered in 1,000 different directions. You ended your time in solitude. Didn't really feel like you were any closer to Jesus. So you say, I want to grow in that area. So you would just click on solitude, and it would take you to this page. And at this point in time, you say, okay, wow, that's a lot more resources. There's 4 different videos that you could watch that talk about the practice of solitude. So maybe you want to watch one video right before you do a session of solitude, and then maybe a week or a month later, you watch the second video, so forth and so on. They're just ways to help you grow. Maybe you say, I'm really already good at a spiritual practice, and you just want to see if you can get even better. Maybe there's one that you're saying, man, I just feel like I'm doing it wrong. It's not working for me. You just want to come back to this baseline and figure it out. It's a growing multitude of resources to help you in being an apprentice of Jesus, to help you follow Jesus day out, to be with Jesus, to become like Jesus, to do as Jesus did. Those are the 3 big words. Those are the words that we keep coming back to for Practicing the Way. Be, become, do. And you can use your own words. You can make up your own sentences. But as an apprentice of Jesus, we spend time with him, be with him. And the more that we spend time with him, man, we read through the Gospels again and again. We spend time in those spiritual practices. with Jesus, the more that we do that, the more that we become like him. We take on his characteristics. The fruit of the Spirit grows in our lives. We begin to see the world and people the way that God sees the beauty of his creation. And we begin to react to people and react to circumstances in our life the way that Jesus reacted to those things. And as we spend time being with Jesus and becoming like Jesus, that balance in all of that, it's not just pick one or just pick two, ignore the other. There's a balance in all of that. Some of you, I know you because I am you. You are doers by nature. Doing comes naturally to you. And you are doing for Jesus like all the time. You're always doing for Jesus. You're serving. Man, you are just doing for Jesus, and it's great. But you're ignoring being with Jesus, becoming like Jesus. And you're doing all this stuff, but man, sometimes it feels like you're just getting exhausted or burned out, or you feel like you're really disconnected from Jesus and who he is. It just doesn't lead to a healthy place whenever you just go down that one lane. And maybe you're sitting here and you say, okay, I'm not a doer by nature. I'm all good. I'm okay. Some of you, man, you just want to be with Jesus all the time. That sounds so sweet, right? Be with Jesus. There is not a Bible study you will not sign up for. There is not a book you will not read. There is not a podcast you will not listen to, man. You are just studying. You are leaning in. You are absorbing. You are just being with Jesus. Problem is, you're forgetting to become like Jesus. You're no longer living like Jesus lived, and that doesn't lead to a healthy place either, right? That leads to hypocrisy, where we have all this knowledge. We say this is what we believe. We say we follow Jesus, but we're not living like Jesus lived. So as you go through life, two questions I've asked myself for the past 30 years, because we all need balance. Who is Jesus inviting me to become? Who does Jesus want me to be? And what is Jesus asking me to do? I keep asking those questions, and you get to a healthier place. You get to a point of balance. Remember, earlier in my ministry time, not even in ministry, I was in seminary. Denise and I were in seminary, and I have no background, no family members, no education in ministry at that point in time when I went to seminary. I am a Penn State business major, specifically management information systems. Technology and business, I have a decent grasp on. I grew up in a family business, entrepreneurial by nature. Ministry, not so much so. God calls me to ministry. We're at seminary, and I got to tell you, my gifts were so much higher than my knowledge or my experience. So my gifts allowed me to do for Jesus without really fully becoming like Jesus and being with Jesus. And early on in my time in seminary, I was asked, hey, Doug, you seem you have a gift in preaching. Would you like to be put on the guest speaker list? Churches in the greater New York, New Jersey area, they reach out to us. They ask if somebody can fill in. And I'm like, sure, I'd love that. So certain weekends, Denise and I would pack up. We'd go to a church, in that area. I would preach. And I remember one Sunday, we were at a church in New Jersey. And game on time, I was so excited. Back in that day, you wore the suit, the tie. I had my sermon. I was so excited for the experience. I was so excited to be preaching at a church, just not studying in seminary. Just a few minutes before the service started, the elders came up to me, and they said, Doug, we totally forgot. We have communion today. Could you lead our communion service? My response, I don't even know if I thought about it. Sure, no problem. What's the problem? There was a problem. I had never led a communion service before. I had no idea what I was doing. In those moments before the service began, I was flipping through my Bible, trying to find some passages that would be appropriate for communion. For those of you that do public speak on a regular basis, there's this, what's coming out of your mouth. There's the conversation that's going on in your head in the background. Sometimes that's the Holy Spirit. Other times it's just pure panic. This was pure panic because I am preaching what is in front of me, but in the back of my head is, Doug, you have no idea what you are doing. I don't know how bad the communion service was, but I do know that I was never invited back to that church to speak again. That week, I went and I sat down with my mentor. I told him the story of what had happened. He's like, churches, they should have never asked you to do that. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. It's all their fault. And then he said, and you should have never said yes. Ooh. And then my mentor told me what he's told me many times. He says, Doug, you know those Canadian Royal Mounties, they got a good system. Heard this so many times. This is how they develop people. They're like, yeah, come on, just watch me. Watch me be a Canadian Royal Mountie. Just watch what I do. You just sort of follow along. You watch what I do day in, day out, week in, week out. And then after you've watched me for a while, we're going to do it together. We're going to be there, we're going to be serving together. We're going to be doing whatever Royal Canadian Mounties really do. And then we'll get to the point where it's all you. You're doing, but I'm in the background. I'm observing. I'm watching. I'm here if you need help. And I am going to offer you feedback, constructive criticism to help you become the best Canadian Royal Mountie you can ever be. Says, Doug, in ministry, just don't say sure. Just don't do it. Find somebody that's ahead of you. Watch them. Ask them to do it with you, and then have them observe you and give you feedback. And that's just not the model for the Canadian Royal Mounties, is it? That's how Jesus equipped his disciples for ministry. He modeled life. He modeled ministry. He modeled intimacy with God. And before he ever sent the disciples out on their own, he did things with them. They'd go on prayer retreats together. There would be miracles together. There'd be dynamic teaching together. And then he'd send them out, and when they'd come back, he'd offer them feedback. And for you and I in apprenticing Jesus and following Jesus, it's what he invites us to do, to be with him, to become like him, to do as he did. And if you've ever been asked to serve in an area of ministry here or elsewhere, and you're just not comfortable, or maybe you're already serving and there's some things you'd like to grow in, please know that this is a model that we fully make open. You're like, before I say yes, I'd like to just watch what that ministry looks like. And before I commit, I'd love to just serve with somebody. I'd like to do ministry with someone. And then when I do actually do it, I'd love for somebody to sort of watch there, be there as my resource person, and offer some feedback along the way. Because all these things are key to you and I being lifelong apprentices of Jesus, following Jesus day in and day out for the long haul. I hope you're getting that all this, all the things that we've done for the past 11 weeks and where we're going in the future, it's because we as a church so value personal spiritual development. We value your personal spiritual development. I value my personal spiritual development. And there's some things that we can do as a church. There's things we can do as a leadership team. We can teach about it. We can model it. We can equip you for the journey. But we can't do it for you. There's an ownership. There's an intentionality piece. If you really want to grow as a follower of Jesus, a disciple of Jesus, an apprentice of Jesus, there's a part for you to play. To make room for the Holy Spirit to do what only he can do in growing you and in developing you. I know that be, become, do. Be, become, do. It sounds so straightforward. It sounds so simple. But it's not always easy. So here's what I just want to be upfront with you. Nothing hidden. I want you to know that there is a cost to following Jesus. There's a cost to following Jesus. I want us to go to one of Jesus' more unpopular teachings. Teaching that maybe prosperity gospel, health and wealth gospel preachers might avoid. Here's the context for the passage we're about to dig into. It's been a great day of ministry. Jesus has miraculously fed the 5,000, just those few fish, those few little bits of bread, and there's been a feast for people. It's been a great day of ministry. Peter finally has connected the dots and declares that Jesus is the Messiah. I mean, it doesn't get any better than this. And if you and I were there, we might say, okay, Jesus, this has been a great day of ministry. Just take the W. Take the win. Let's call it a day. Let's go off. Let's rest. Let's celebrate. I mean, when word gets out about this miraculous feast, man, these thousands are going to turn into tens of thousands. The crowds are just going to grow. But Jesus prophesies. Jesus says this is what's coming my way, what's coming our way. In Luke chapter 9, the Son of Man, how Jesus refers to himself so often, the Son of Man must suffer many terrible things. He will be rejected by the elders, the leading priests, and the teachers of religious law. He will be killed, but on the third day, he will be raised from the dead. From a limited human standpoint, not knowing everything you know now. There was no Easter, there was no church. You had just been following Jesus and you heard these words. What most people, what most of the crowd, what most of the followers of Jesus at this time wanted, what they thought. That Jesus was going to be their new king. They were picturing Jesus kicking out the Roman occupation. They were picturing Jesus riding into Jerusalem on a stallion, not a donkey, with a sword in his hand, not palm branches spread on the ground. That's the king that they were looking for. That is what they were desiring. It's what they wanted. And for Jesus to say, I'm going to suffer terrible things. I'm going to be rejected. Huge amounts of suffering. Eventually, I'm going to be killed. Murdered. And he's like, I know Jesus does amazing things. But nobody can raise themselves from the dead. You'd be dismayed. And if Jesus had just stopped there, it would have already thinned the crowd. If Jesus had just said those words and stopped, there would already be followers of Jesus who were quickly looking for the exit ramp on the road to following Jesus. Because this isn't what they wanted. This isn't what they were looking for. But Jesus continues in talking to the crowd. Then he said to the crowd, if any of you wants to be my follower. And for 11 weeks we've been saying, come on, what does it look like to be my follower? What does it look like to be Jesus' follower? We're saying, what does that look like day in and day out? And Jesus says to the crowd, not to the inner circle of 12, not to those closest 3 or his best bud of 1. Jesus says to everyone, if you want to be my follower, here's the cost. You must give up your own way, take up your cross daily, and follow me. Right now, some of you are wearing a cross as a piece of jewelry on your body. Probably most of you can picture a cross somewhere in your house, your home. But when Jesus said these words, no one was wearing a cross. No one had a tattoo of a cross on their body. No one hung a cross or displayed a cross anywhere in their home. When Jesus spoke these words, Crucifixion had already been around for hundreds of years. But the Roman Empire had taken it to a whole new level. The most vile, the most humiliating way to be executed. Reserved for the worst of the criminals. Roman made it an art form to cause someone agony and humiliation, to put them on public display. In other words, if you cross us, this is political power. This is saying if you cross us, if you deny us, if you think you can go your own way, this is what awaits you. Even a Roman citizen. Crucifixion was so bad that a Roman citizen could not be crucified. It was illegal. They could be killed and murdered in so many better ways, but not crucifixion. Now, I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing at all. But I think that we've lost the intensity of the cross and what it was all about when Jesus spoke these words. If you'd indulge me for just a moment, for those of you that would, whether you're here or at home, would you just close your eyes for the next 2 minutes? If you have a cross, a piece of jewelry on your body, or a tattoo on your body, would you just reach out and touch it right now? Just hold it for the next minute or so. If you don't, just picture that cross in your house, at your home. And now I want you to change the image of that cross to an electric chair, a guillotine, a firing squad, a gas chamber, lethal injection, the gallows, burning at the stake. And hear Jesus say to you, because we're part of the crowd, anyone who wants to be my follower, take up your most vile instrument of suffering, humiliation, and death, and follow me. Who wants to hear that? Who wants to live like that? But Jesus is clear. There is a cost to following him. You can open up your eyes. And Luke gives us the detail that the other gospel writers don't. He says, take up your cross daily. Not a one-time thing, not even a once-in-a-while thing. It's a daily part of following Jesus. It's an ongoing way of life. It is daily bowing before the King of Kings and saying, not my will be done, but your will be done. There's a cost to following Jesus, but there's also a cost to not following Jesus. Jesus continues, if you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, you will save it. And what do you benefit if you gain the whole world, but are yourself lost or destroyed? There's a cost of non-discipleship, of non-apprenticeship, of not following Jesus. We lack fulfillment or purpose in our lives. We get caught up in some vague, consumeristic, cultural notion of what life is all about. The fruit of the Spirit is like entirely missing or in short supply. No connection, no relationship to our Heavenly Father, the creator of the universe. Not experience life in its fullest in both the here and now and for all of eternity. We all experience that tension, right? Between the invitation to follow Jesus and the cost of following Jesus. It's a tension. The broad invitation, come and see, follow me. And the cost of following Jesus. In discovering faith beyond Christianity, Skye, the author, the pastor, writes this. He says, my secret is that I want to be relevant and popular. I want my desires fulfilled and pain minimized. I want a managed relationship with an institution rather than messy relationships with real people. He goes on. I want to be transformed into the image of Christ by showing up at entertaining events rather than through the hard work of discipline. I want to wear my faith on my sleeve and not look at the darkness in my heart. Above all, I want a controllable God. I want a divine commodity to do my will on earth as well as in heaven. Is it just Sky? Can anybody else relate to this? There are days where the way of Doug wins my heart and affection. There are days when the way of culture, what the world says, wins my heart and affection. Can you relate? I want patience, but I want it quick and I want it right now. I want character, but I don't want suffering. I want humility, but I do not want humiliation. I want kindness, but I don't want people in my life who annoy me or take up too much of my time. I want gentleness, but I am ready to fight for my own self-interest at a moment's notice. I want love and joy, but I don't want to yield to God and others. In short, I want to follow Jesus, but I don't want to die to self. I don't want to daily take up my cross. It's that civil war of the soul. What I want to do and what I know I should do. Who I want to be and who the Holy Spirit is crafting me to be and called me to be. Dallas Willard says it like this. Self-denial, or being dead to self, is the condition where the mere fact that I do not get what I want does not surprise or offend me and has no control over me. A lot of us need to take a picture of that quote. Let me say it again. Self-denial, daily taking up our cross, being dead to self, is the condition where the mere fact that I do not get what I want does not surprise or offend me and has no control over me. One last passage where Jesus talks about the cost. A little bit later in Luke chapter 14, a large crowd was following Jesus. He turned around and said to them, if you want to be my disciple, you must, by comparison, if you struggled with this passage before, the word is by comparison, you must, by comparison, hate everyone else. Jesus does not say hate everyone else. He says by comparison, hate everyone else, your father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even your own life. Otherwise, it's straightforward. You cannot be my disciple. And if you do not carry your own cross and follow me, you cannot be my disciple. But don't begin until you count the cost. There's a cost to following Jesus. It's a change in priorities. It's bowing our knee to the one true King of Kings. Saying again and again, not my will be done, but your will be done. And in a culture that makes it so much about us and me and what I want and what I need and what I should have and what I deserve and what I'm entitled to. This was radical 2,000 years ago, and it is even more radical today. There is a cost to following Jesus. 11 weeks ago, I said I'm asking two things of all of you. Would you go into that practicing the way, create your own free login, and take that spiritual health reflection? A large number of you did that. It's on your bulletin if you haven't done that yet. And I said, listen to the series. Just listen to the series. That's all I asked of you to do. If you missed some of the messages, go back, listen to our podcast, watch it on our website or YouTube. But today I want to offer a next step to all of you, and it's on your connection card. And one of those things is we believe that good stewardship is equipping you for the journey of following Jesus, of being a day-by-day apprentice to Jesus. If you would like to read the book, maybe share one per family. If you would like to read the book, just make a mark on that. We're going to get you a copy of the book. We can put some copies in the library, but we want to give you a copy to read through the book. You can read a chapter a week, a chapter a month. You'll be done by the end of the year. It doesn't matter. Now, if you've read 0 books last year, be honest. Are you going to read a book this year? But we'd love to equip you for that. Just say, I'd like a copy of the book. And the other thing we're asking all small groups to do is over the next 18 months to start out somewhere going through the small group 8-session series. For those of you that meet twice a month, I know that's a 4-month commitment. So most likely for you, it's going to be starting in January 2026 or starting in January 2027. But we'd love for every group, every kind of group, every person to go through those 8 sessions. You can do it online by yourself, but we believe it is best done in community. And if you're like, I'm interested in going through those 8 sessions, but I'm not part of a small group, I don't want to be a part of a small group, I just want to go through those 8 sessions with just maybe a few people for 8 weeks, you can check that box and we'll eventually figure out a way to make that happen as well. So come on. Think about that rear view mirror where you look back and you see how far you have come. Lean into being with Jesus, becoming like Jesus, doing as Jesus did. And man, as time goes by, your character of Christ, of the fruit of the Spirit is formed in you. You mature, you grow, and you can look back and you can see the work that the Holy Spirit has been doing in your life, growing and maturing.
Thanks again for listening. Any step you take towards Jesus is a step in the right direction. You can find out more about us at crbic.org. That's crbic.org.